Tonight, your head will touch the pillow, the room will go quiet, and your brain will begin making a movie that never happened. Maybe you finally say the perfect thing in an argument that ended years ago. Maybe the person you like suddenly admits they feel the same way. Maybe you become successful, survive a disaster, expose someone who betrayed you, or walk into a room where everyone finally understands who you are. None of it is real. You know it is not real. And yet your heart speeds up. You feel embarrassed, angry, loved, powerful, or terrified over an event that exists nowhere outside your skull. During the day, you may struggle to focus for 10 minutes. But at night, your brain can write, direct, and emotionally perform an entire life in the dark. So why does it do this? Why? At the exact moment you are trying to switch consciousness off, does your mind become a machine for creating worlds? The answer begins with something strange. Your brain is not inventing the future from nothing. It is cutting your past into pieces. All day, the outside world keeps interrupting you. Messages arrive, people speak, cars move, screens change. Your eyes scan rooms, your ears track voices, and your body constantly adjusts to whatever happens next. Even when you are bored, the world keeps giving your brain something to process. Then you get into bed. The lights go out, the phone goes down, your body stops moving, there is no conversation to follow, no face to read, and no task demanding an immediate response. The outside world becomes quiet, but the brain does not. When your attention is no longer locked onto an external task, a group of connected brain regions, often called the default mode network, becomes more involved in internally focused thought. Remembering your past, thinking about yourself, imagining other people, and picturing what might happen next. It is not an off mode, it is closer to an internal storyteller, and bedtime gives that storyteller an empty stage. But that still does not explain why the stories feel so personal. Why not imagine random furniture, unfamiliar streets, or people you have never seen? Why does your brain keep returning to your mistakes, your ambitions, your fears, and the people whose opinions matter to you? Because the material used to build these scenes comes from memory. Think about a fake scenario you have played before. You walk into a party looking completely different. Someone who ignored you notices. They regret losing you. You remain calm. You say one perfect sentence and leave. That scene may never have happened, but almost every piece of it has. The room may come from a place you visited. The face belongs to a real person. The sentence may come from a movie. The feeling of rejection may come from last year. And the confident version of you walking away may come from the person you hope to become. Your brain retrieves fragments stored separately and recombines them into one new event. The same memory system that helps you revisit the past also helps you simulate possible futures. Your memories are not simply finished recordings sitting untouched inside your head. They can be taken apart. A face from one day, a location from another, a fear from childhood, a sentence you heard last week, a goal you have never told anyone about. Your brain binds those pieces together and creates a scene that has never existed before. That flexibility matters because the future never arrives as a perfect copy of the past. To prepare for something new, the brain needs to pull old information apart and rebuild it in a different order. That is why imaginary conversations can feel so vivid. They are fictional, but they are made from real emotional evidence. And once your brain can build a possible future, it can do something even more useful. It can let you experience the event before you have to live through it. Imagine your ancestors moving through tall grass near sunset. They hear something behind them. It might be wind. It might be an animal. The person who can picture what could happen next has an advantage. Where would the threat appear? Which direction should the group run? What happens if the child freezes? What happens if the path home is blocked? No one knows exactly how. Prehistoric humans experienced imagination, and your brain did not evolve simply to create stories before sleep. But the ability to simulate possibilities is extremely useful. It helps with planning, decision-making, social prediction, and preparation. Before an important conversation, you rehearse different openings. Before entering a new place, you imagine how people may react. Before taking a risk, you picture success and failure. The fake scenario is a kind of low-cost test. Your body stays safely in bed while your mind walks into the future first. And social situations may be especially powerful because, for most of human history, other people were not optional background characters. Your group meant food, protection, information, status, partnership, and survival. Being accepted mattered. Being humiliated mattered. Being abandoned could be dangerous. So the modern brain still spends enormous energy attempting to predict people. What will they say? What did they mean? What should you have said? What would make them respect you? Your imaginary argument at 1 in the morning may look pointless from the outside, but the machinery producing it is attempting to solve an ancient problem. How do I enter the next social encounter without being surprised? There is only one problem. A simulator designed to generate possibilities does not automatically know when it has generated enough. At first, the scene feels useful. You replay the conversation and find a better answer. Then you replay it again. This time, the other person says something worse. So you create a response to that. Then your mind changes their expression. It adds another witness, it moves the conversation somewhere else, and it gives the story a new ending. You are no longer preparing for one likely event. You are fighting an enemy that changes every time you defeat it. This is where simulation can become rumination. Your brain treats uncertainty like an unfinished task. It keeps reopening the file because no imaginary ending can prove that the real problem has been solved. And negative scenarios have one advantage over peaceful ones. Threats demand attention. A fantasy in which everything goes normally can end in seconds. A fantasy in which something goes wrong creates questions. What caused it? Could you stop it? Who would help? What happens afterward? Each answer opens another door. You begin with, what if I make a mistake tomorrow? Minutes later, you have lost your job, disappointed everyone you know, moved to another city, and started a completely new life under a different name. Your brain is not predicting the future. It is exploring a tree of possibilities. But your body does not always respond as though the scene is theoretical. Imagine an insult clearly enough, and anger begins to rise. Imagine rejection clearly enough, and your chest can tighten. Imagine a perfect reunion, and you may feel relief over a relationship that has not changed at all. The event is fake. The emotional response is real, and that creates the cruelest bedtime loop. The scenario keeps you emotionally awake. Then being awake gives you more time to create scenarios. Eventually, something changes. Your thoughts become less controlled. A normal conversation jumps to a childhood classroom. The classroom becomes a train. A person begins speaking with someone else's voice. You may briefly see a face, a hallway, or an object with a clarity that feels almost external. Then you jerk awake and realize you were no longer deliberately imagining anything. You were beginning to dream. The transition into sleep is not a clean switch. You do not move instantly from completely awake to completely unconscious. As wakefulness fades, controlled thought becomes less stable. Images become more sensory. Connections become stranger. The brain's editor begins losing control before the image generator shuts down. That is why a fake scenario may begin as a carefully scripted fantasy and end as something completely bizarre. You choose the first scene. Then the scene begins choosing itself. The person you wanted to impress appears. You plan the conversation. The walls change. The logic loosens. And somewhere during that transformation, deliberate imagination becomes sleep onset imagery. For someone who falls asleep easily, the story dissolves, and sleep takes over. For someone caught in worry, the opposite can happen. The story produces emotional arousal, and that arousal pulls the brain back toward wakefulness. Your mind was attempting to prepare you for tomorrow, but by refusing to release tomorrow, it can damage the sleep you need to face it. But not every fake scenario is frightening. Some are comforting. You become famous, you meet the right person, you return years later, completely transformed, and everyone who underestimated you finally sees what you became. These scenes may not be rehearsals for danger, they may be rehearsals for identity. Your brain is not only asking, what might happen? It is also asking, who could I become? A private fantasy lets you temporarily experience love, control, justice, status, or competence when those things feel missing during the day. And because the imagined reward is immediate, the scenario can become attractive in its own right. Reality requires effort, uncertainty, risk, and the possibility of failure. The imaginary version gives you the emotional payoff immediately. You do not have to send the message. You do not have to risk rejection. You do not have to become successful. For a few minutes, you only have to picture it. That does not make the fantasy meaningless. Sometimes imagining a future helps clarify what you actually want. It can reveal a goal, help you anticipate a problem, or motivate you to act. But sometimes the simulation begins replacing the action. The same machine that prepares you for life can become a private room where nothing can contradict you. You always find the right words. The other person always understands. The crowd always reacts correctly. You are never caught unprepared. And because real life cannot be controlled that way, your brain may return to the imaginary version night after night. Not because it believes the scenario is real, but because the scenario provides something reality has not yet provided. So when your brain creates a fake scenario before sleep, it may be doing several things at once. It may be sorting emotional material left unfinished during the day. It may be recombining memories to model a possible future. It may be rehearsing a social encounter, scanning for threats, exploring a goal, or giving you a temporary feeling of control. And these are not completely separate machines. Memory, imagination, self-reflection, social prediction, and future planning are deeply connected. Your brain builds tomorrow from pieces of yesterday and places you in the center of the scene. That ability lets you practice events that have not happened. Prepare for dangers you have not met, and move toward versions of yourself that do not exist yet. But a machine capable of simulating any future can also generate futures that are impossible, cruel, comforting, addictive, or endless. It can protect you from a threat. It can also keep you awake fighting one that was never there. Tonight, your head will touch the pillow, the room will become quiet, and another movie may begin. Someone will say something they never said. You will enter a place that does not exist. You may win an argument, lose everything, fall in love, become someone else, or finally receive the apology reality never gave you. And for a few minutes, it may feel completely real, but your brain is not showing you the future. It is showing you what it can build from your memories, fears, goals, and unfinished emotions when the outside world stops interrupting. The strange part is not that your brain creates fake scenarios. The strange part is that the same system responsible for remembering who you were is constantly rehearsing who you might become. Every night, just before consciousness disappears, your brain takes your life apart, rearranges the pieces, and asks one final question. What happens if? And sometimes you fall asleep before it finds an answer.